in our Microsoft and partner session with Cognitive Scale. My name is Elizabeth Olafsdottir. I lead the Analytics and AI business here at Microsoft UK. It's my pleasure to welcome you. You'll hear Microsoft talk a lot about digital transformation if you've seen any of the sessions from our CEO, Satya Nadella. Obviously, we know that AI and analytics is a very, very broad area, and it's really about how we apply practical applications to meet real-life business problems. It's my pleasure to be joined today by Robert from Cognitive Scale, who is a very valued partner for us in helping to shape our customers' businesses. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Robert to the stage to talk to you about reshaping digital businesses with augmented reality.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. And I guess I'm the proverbial 30 minutes between you and the bar. My name is Robert. I run the international arm of a company called Cognitive Scale. We focus on artificial intelligence. We were established 4 years ago. We're headquartered in Austin, Texas. We were co-founded by the first GM responsible for commercializing IBM Watson. And our chief technology officer was the head of Watson Labs. Now, I'm not here to give you a commercial on Cognitive Scale. We're here to walk a little bit through where AI is today, how much is real and how much is marketing hype, what are the practical applications, and what are some best practices. Now, we have literally dozens of implementations globally around the world around these cognitive solutions, so I'm hoping that we can go through a couple of use cases that make sense to you today. And clearly, we've entered this era of AI. Between the billions that Google, Microsoft, and IBM have invested, it's created a real froth around AI. Of course, this is the headquarters for Google DeepMind. If you take a look at Microsoft, Microsoft has reorganized their entire research and development arm division around AI. And of course, Ginni Rometty has reorganized their entire company around this notion of AI. And it's already disrupting everything from coffee to concerts to cancer. So if you pick up the New York Times digital edition, it's really difficult not to read an article that doesn't have a reference to AI. And if we step back, there are really three major AI caliber categories today. And the first is what's known as artificial narrow intelligence, or weak AI. This is going to be the majority of the talk here today, but it's important to understand we're currently a world basically running on ANI today. If you drove a modern car into the event today, ANI is all over it. It's figuring out your fuel consumption, it's adjusting your fuel injection. The only thing it's not doing is giving you dating advice. The world's best chess and Othello players are ANI. If you look at virtual games and virtual gaming, AIs are learning very, very quickly how to play those. And where they do well, right, and where we get them working, they start beating us and they never look back. And these systems become very strong. In healthcare, analysis of a mammogram is done by ANI more accurately and faster than a human being today. Now, you also hear a lot about artificial general intelligence, or what would be strong AI. There are very few that are skeptical that this will happen. It's a question of if and not when. This is because of things like recursive self-improvement, AIs that can write AIs, and the notion is that a machine can perform any intelligent task that a human can. And this could happen quicker than we think. And finally, this notion of artificial superintelligence, and it's when an AI is smarter than any human across the board. And fundamentally, if you look at Elon Musk's efforts from OpenAI as well as Neuralink, it fundamentally is to combat this notion that we're going to let AI loose in the world. This notion that we can start to augment humans with things like neural links to the internet and be able to combat that. So by 2025, AI will be everywhere. And that's a short period of time. And there's this gentleman named Tim Urban, and I'd encourage you to go read him. He's had great access into all of Elon Musk's businesses. He did a great article known as The Road to Superintelligence, and he has this notion of cook versus chef. So a cook, of course, can follow a recipe, and a chef is inventing new things. And where you don't want to be in 2025 is a cook, because it's going to be like the gazelle, the slow gazelle at the back of the pack, right? So AI is here. What about AGI and ASI? The median expert prediction for strong AI is 2040. So we're still a bit far from that perspective. And why the pursuit? Well, ASI could allow us to conquer our mortality. And fundamentally, what's driving that is, there's a few millennials in the audience, right? Is that the millennials want to be able to live forever. And that's going to drive this pursuit. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Some of it we'll see in our lifetime, much of it we won't. But let's step back to reality and what's being accomplished today. So where does AI fit in the world of analytics, big data, and cognitive computing? So first off, big data and analytics are building blocks to this notion of cognitive computing. So business intelligence, big data analytics, machine learning, of course, graph technology, so these new and unique ways to be able to represent knowledge, which is very exciting. And then finally, this all comes together in terms of a cognitive solution. This idea of being able to build and deploy self-learning processes. And so if we look at digital innovation, look, the challenge for all of us, our customers, our own companies, is how do you make sense of all the data inside your organization, whether it's in legacy systems or unstructured data, as well as all the meaningful information that's outside of your organization, so that you can find the right data and start giving contextual insights to customers via a mobile form factor, to a knowledge worker that's working on a customer service task, or let's say a compliance process. And then, of course, to be able to deploy APIs, endpoints, and business processes that can take that feedback and learn and adjust as you go. And why is AI resurging now? I would say it's been there. It's been with us for 30 or 40 years. The first neural network technology, the first inference engines, the first expert systems. But we see this interesting super convergence that's taking place today between AI, cloud, mobile, social, big data, and blockchain that's allowing us to do some interesting things. And we see that across, and many of you have probably seen a version of this slide before. But if you look across Uber, Airbnb, WeChat, Alibaba, Facebook, Netflix, they are threading AI throughout their solutions. We have this notion that a little bit of AI goes a long ways. And it makes a huge difference in terms of being able to engage with customers. And the common theme across all of these companies is that they are technology companies that engage their customers brilliantly. And of course, it's occurring at a breakneck speed, at an accelerated pace. When you consider that it took 4 years for the internet to get to 50 million users, and Angry Birds did it in 35 days, right? These things can happen very, very quick. So let's talk a little bit about the hype. Let's talk a little bit about where there's misunderstandings in what's going on in this space. Because AI is both artificially inflated as well as delivering some amazing innovations in the field today. So from an inflation standpoint, AI is going to kill our jobs. Well, not today. What it's going to be able to do is it's going to be able to augment a knowledge worker or to provide an insight to a customer. Big data and analytics are AI. As I illustrated on the previous slide, it's a building block or a component. All of the cognitive solutions we've deployed encompass big data and BI. However, they are not AI in and of themselves. Natural language processing, machine learning, and deep learning are AI. Well, now, these are excellent tools for complex pattern recognition and pattern matching, but they are components that allow us to assemble into a solution. RPA is AI. RPA is more akin to process management and process automation. And in the field, you see a tremendous amount of efficiencies that are being driven into organizations with RPA, but it's not AI per se. Enterprise AI can be an opaque black box. Well, not in a regulated industry. Certainly not in healthcare or financial services. And one of the problems today with many software companies that are providing AI is the AI cannot explain itself. It's a black box. So fundamentally, it has to be explainable. And I guess the big myth is that technology alone will solve all problems in overnight. I don't know that it's a myth, but it's a nice thing to try to believe. But fundamentally, what do we have to have? We have to have domain expertise. If you think about machine learning, once I get to classification of models, I've got to bring domain expertise into the mix. I need method, and I need change management. Otherwise, these projects end up being science projects, and they aren't going to realize an actual business outcome. So cognitive scale got its start in the US in healthcare, and I want to use an example here, but across all of our implementations, we have this notion of know me, engage me, learn from me. So know me is understanding the data that you have on me, right, so that I don't have to repeat myself. Engage me is bring me a contextual insight that makes sense and when I need it and via the form factor that I'm comfortable with. And learn from me is when I like something, take that into account in the future. When I don't like something, take that into account in the future. And if we look at the world of analytics, right, this business value spectrum, it runs from descriptive to diagnostic to predictive, prescriptive, and deductive. I'm going to give you a quick little example. And in this case, this is a children's hospital that focuses around infectious diseases and chronic disease with children. And so we get a pollen.com tweet, a ragweed alert, which can cause respiratory distress in kids. And the diagnostic is that there's 5 ragweed variants, and there's 17 children at risk. I mean, a standard business intelligence gives me that information. I also can use predictive analytics to make some predictions here. 4 will end up in the emergency room. Now it gets interesting. What type of things can the system start to suggest that could be used? Well, parents and school nurses could be sent an email, a text. We could tweet, private Facebook group, that the ragweed alert has happened. We can mail an inhaler so that it's at the parent's front stoop when they get home that night. We can send transportation challenged families an Uber voucher so that if there is an issue, they can be able to get to a treatment facility. And then finally, the deductive side of things, how many were affected, how do we update the knowledge such that it can be used in the future? And that's really what we consider to be the opportunity space from a cognitive cloud standpoint. So, where do we see the application of AI in cognitive solutions today? On the one hand, at the edge of the enterprise, right? So where we want to have a truly personalized relationship and experience with a customer. And the other is inside the company's 4 wall, where we're augmenting the capabilities of knowledge workers, bringing them information that they need to be able to do their job. And so at CogScale, we're working with a major US retailer today. And so here's the scenario. I have a mobile app, and my best friend is getting married. They're getting married in the month of July in South Florida. Why shouldn't I be able to go and say, effectively tell the system that, and then it understands my brand preferences, it understands my color preferences, it understands that South Florida is very hot in July, and as opposed to forcing me to go through 1,500 pieces of apparel, have it be able to contextualize that and give that to me. Now, it's a relatively simple example, but very hard to pull off, because I need to attribute a catalog. I need to build a cognitive graph that's a profile of one on that shopper, and then I need to be able to deal with this at runtime. So, but it can be significant. So in this case, we had an engagement lift. That is the time that the client spent with the mobile app. And then a conversion lift, right? So what I actually put into the basket and bought. And it's this notion that this digital brain can continue to learn over time, and it can get better and better and better and better. And with traditional software, we deal with maintenance, we deal with heavy expense. Once you've implemented it, it actually becomes more expensive over time. And the difference with an AI solution is that its first day on the job is its worst day on the job. These systems learn over time, okay, and get better over time. Now, we work a lot in financial services, especially here in Europe. And if you look at what large banks are doing, huge investment in AI, and in some cases they are buying startups, partnering with startups, but for the most part, they're competing against fintech. And in the past, size and scale have been major sources of competitive advantage for these banks. But we're in this transition period, right, where they're having to fight fintech. Now, I don't know if you've ever come across TransferWise. I use TransferWise to move money from my bank account in the UK to my bank account in the US. And prior to these guys showing up, I was paying to Lloyd's 8-10 times as much in conversion fees and in transaction fees. And they basically have eaten their lunch. And what's happened is we're seeing the unbundling of these companies. The fintechs come in and they start biting off pieces of the most profitable piece of business. So the banks need to fight back. And what they're trying to do with AI is very interesting. And these are some examples and use cases of what we've done across retail, investment, banking, wealth management, and insurance. And let me take you through a quick little example here. And it's a solution that we term as quantitative research insights, kind of geeky term, but fundamentally what it does is we take machine learning and we look at all the transaction history of retail investors that are buying equities, ETF, mutual funds, options, that type of thing across developed markets. And we use the ML to cluster and classify the investors. So we understand what's been bought, what's been sold, when it was bought, when it was sold, and what they hold. And that creates a graph, and it's a special graph that we term as a profile of one. And then we use around 220 external data sources around economic indicators, 60 years of market history, and we further decorate that graph because now I can start inferring behavior. You buy and sell ahead of earnings announcements. You tend to like financial services companies, but only ones that pay dividends. You like the retail sector in the UK, right? So this notion that I can take observed behavior and infer information to create a profile on this investor. Now, at any point in the day, there are 700,000 things you can purchase, an equity, ETF, mutual fund, or option across all the developed markets. So how do I start delivering insights? So in this case, since we're in London, let's say Marks and Spencer yesterday violated its 20th percentile relative to its historical trading history. I backtest that, find that it's happened 5 times in history. The median return is 27%, and I give that to you as an insight, fully backtested. Now I'm democratizing investing in this case because I've effectively brought the power of an institutional investor or an equity researcher to a retail trader. Now we also have this notion of declared information. So I could go into the system and say, even though you don't know this about me, I want you to tell me about FTSE 350 companies that are providing products and services that are going to allow millennials to live forever. And the system is going to start giving me insights around those types of companies. So it's a good example here of knowledge representation, be a graph, a reasoning engine, so an actual reasoning engine that can work across that knowledge, deliver insights, and then learn over time. Okay. So I guess a couple of points here from field-based experience is start top down with business outcomes, right? We always want to be able to look at above the board budgeted initiatives or areas where there's going to be innovation so that it makes sense to the business. Build a culture of experimentation and learning. The fact is that there will be projects that fail. In many cases, we don't know what we're going to learn from the data. So the data has to be available, and there has to be this notion that some percentage of those projects are not going to go well. Pay for success versus pray for success. Get help where you need help in order to shortcut the processes. Doubt vendor marketing claims, right? Lay your company's AI business foundation. Run tracks from a production and innovation and a center of excellence over time. Partner smartly. Build an AI ecosystem. You know, bring in the right companies that are going to allow you to deploy these cognitive solutions. And time is precious. Figure out where to spend it. The idea of using a heat map to figure out, based on functionals and non-functionals, availability of data and what matters to the business becomes a great way to figure out where to start. And then, of course, use a prioritized set of use cases. There's a wealth of information, whether it's from YouTube or it's from the gentleman that I referenced earlier, or just the World Wide Web, right? Where people are sharing their best practices and their examples. And why is AI an imperative for you and the company that you work for? Well, your customers will care. I mean, let's face it, I can talk to my car, I can talk to my home security system, I can talk to my phone. The fact is that your customers are going to expect this type of information. Your employees care. If I've got a knowledge-based system, if I have an AI, an augmented intelligence system that's telling me when I have a compliance issue, for instance, then that becomes critical in terms of the way that I conduct my job. And finally, your investors will care. So again, by 2025, AI will be everywhere. I would say that by 2025, we will see companies taken into court, especially in regulated industries where they have not deployed this technology, such that they can find the anomalies and do things about it. So I'm just going to close. I'm going to leave a little time for questions if you have them. In terms of COG scale, our clients are global market leaders. Our products are proven, and I would just, as you get into this, challenge whoever you're working with to say, all right, where have you done this before? And we've got a strong set of investors and funding. Microsoft, our host today, Microsoft Venture Partners, is an investor in the company. We're working very closely with Microsoft. It's been a pleasure bringing up some of these solutions on the Azure platform, that's for sure. And our focus is around this whole notion of man and machine versus man versus machine, and this idea of a verticalized full stack to go deliver these solutions. Our platform known as Cortex, right, deployed on the cloud. So that's what I have today. Just remember, be the chef, not the cook, right? And don't be the slow gazelle. Thank you. Questions? Are there any questions? Anything anyone would like to ask?
This was a great presentation, but I have one question that bugs me. I mean, all you people say that AI won't kill jobs. It won't kill jobs. We know that. So we just must be more sincere about that, I think, every company. Even Bill Gates told about universal basic income in future time.
Yep.
We'll need it. So what's your opinion about that?
Well, I think it's going to impact everybody's life, for sure. I think that it will, over the next 7 to 8 years, impact everyone's job, right? So, but there's really nothing we can do about that except, make sure you stay on top of your skills, right? Again, be the chef and not the cook, right? Know your domain, and, it's like the mammogram scenario. So the AI can scan and understand a mammogram hundreds of times faster than a doctor, and it's actually more accurate, okay? So 95% versus 88%. So we're probably not going to have a lot of doctors that are doing that task in the future. Well, I don't think there will be a scenario of no doctors. Maybe we see that in 20 or 30 years. I'm probably dead by then.
Let him die. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and
Thanks,
gentlemen.
guys. Thanks for coming.